I'm speaking for myself as an ordinary member of the public of Britain who knew no history, almost no history. And 6 years ago, my journey of discovery began. Began when my husband and I were invited for a holiday in Jordan. And at Aqaba, we saw an exhibition of the correspondence between Sir Henry McMahon and Sheriff Hussein. And our host gently explained to his ignorant guests the significance of that correspondence. That it was a promise from the British High Commissioner in Cairo that if Sheriff Hussein and his troops would support the British to get rid of the Ottomans, then Sheriff Hussein could become the king of the Arab lands. To our shame, we had never heard of McMahon or his correspondence. After that, we took a bus over the King Hussein Bridge, otherwise known as the Allenby Bridge, to Jerusalem. And there we began a serious journey of learning and discovery and making friends, listening to people in both Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. And I shall always be grateful for those friends, and I hope to go back and see them soon. Mulling over our experiences back home, I began to ask people, how will Britain mark the centenary of the Balfour Declaration? And then 2 people said they would work with us, and so the Balfour Project was born just 2 years ago, and a very small group of ordinary people. As we began to learn more, we realised that this promise to establish a national home for the Jews in Palestine and to protect the rights of the existing communities in Palestine contained seeds of contradiction. And once we understood that the Balfour Declaration was just one of several contradictory promises made by Britain during the First World War, what really appalled us was a deliberate deceit and dishonesty that ran through the whole story. I'm not saying, that it shouldn't have happened, but the deceit with which our British politicians were running this is a sorry story. We believe that Britain needs to say sorry for that, not for the declaration. But what else? Well, for breaking our promises as a nation to the Palestinian Arabs, for having drawn both Jews and Arabs into an impossible situation. Could I put it like that? For double dealing in high places, for evidence of despicable attitudes, whether it was the racism that looked down on Arab people or the anti-Semitism that helped give rise to Zionism in the first place. And what the British people need to understand is that only the first part of the Balfour Declaration was implemented. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. The second half, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, was deliberately ignored. But we've forgotten this betrayal, and for this we need to ask pardon. The Balfour Project is a challenge to the people of Britain to reflect deeply, seriously, on the suffering and humiliation we caused in Palestine over the past 100 years. We, from the project, dare to hope that this could act as a catalyst in bringing about a positive move forward between Jews and Arabs. Marking the centenary of the Balfour Declaration is merely the beginning of a long campaign to change the way that Britain thinks and acts in the world. Our dream is that Britain could be forgiven, could be redeemed, could become humble and transparent, a trustworthy nation. John Austin Baker, who was a former chaplain to the Speaker of the House of Commons and the Bishop of Salisbury, wrote recently, "There is no peace without repentance. There is no repentance without knowledge. There is no knowledge without education." And he added, "The Balfour Project so truly fulfills these principles that it can only do good where good is desperately needed and deserves all the help we can give." Many things have convinced us that the vast majority of British people are, like my husband and myself, quite oblivious to our imperial history and to the suffering and the humiliation our political leaders caused. And now the British need to be informed and educated. At this point, I want to acknowledge a debt of inspiration to initiatives of change whose venue we've hired tonight. The movement has become associated with the work of reconciliation, and if you're interested to learn more, there are books and DVDs on the table out there of some significant personal and national experiences of healing. This evening we look forward to learning more, much more, of the complex and often forgotten motivation of the British in Palestine. Generally, we know of two narratives that exist in the Mandate area: the story of the Jews and that of the Palestinians. But there's a third narrative that needs to run alongside the other two in order to understand the wounds and suffering of the present conflict, that of Britain in Palestine. I'd like to end by quoting the former Chief Rabbi, Lord Jonathan Sacks, during a visit to Scotland when he was describing the Jewish New Year and the Day of Atonement. He said, "We ask ourselves not what did we do right, but what did we do wrong. We use two ideas that between them have the power to change the world. The first is apology, the second is forgiveness. They are the only ideas that have the strength to break the grip of the past. Apology and forgiveness tell us that we can mend fractured relationships. We can acknowledge our errors and begin again. We cannot rewrite the past, but we can write a different future. The question now is not can we, but will we write a different future? And with the help of the speakers tonight, I would like to think that we're already on the way.